People with jobs that require you to go into strangers' houses. What is the weirdest thing you've encountered? A goat in the living room. The mother came down and shooed it outside. Not me, but my dad, who can tell the story much better than I can. He was once repairing a furnace in the basement of one of his clients' homes. Nobody was home when suddenly he heard a scurrying behind him. But when he looked, nothing was there. This went on several times before he realized the noise was coming from behind the couch. Slowly, he began towards it. As he bent down, turns out he was a pet. But apparently it really spooked him at the time. So this was back when I was a student on a placement in community mental health services. I went out on a visit to see a man who was just recently discharged from a medium secure hospital. He had schizophrenia psychosis. We were going in for a routine checkup. I knock. He opens the door. And this incredible stench just hits us in the face. And I thought I was gonna throw up right there. But alas. My supervisor urges me to go in. We walk into his house. And it just smells so bad. My eyes were watering. I keep my composure. We chat to him. And I notice some black thing on his kitchen table. Looks like rotting food mold, tiny dead mouse. IDK. So after chatting, I casually ask him what that black thing is and if he needs help cleaning it up. Oh, it's my toes. What the frick? Yeah, I cut them off. They didn't fit right on my foot. Needless to say, he was immediately readmitted. He reportedly cut them off with a kitchen knife and then seared his wound with a lighter. I believe he had to have his entire foot below knee leg amputated because it got infected. I used to help my dad, who was a real estate appraiser. We went into this one house that was in the mountains. It was vacant. One room looked like it had black carpeting. When we looked closer, we found out the floor was covered in dead flies. The only room in the house like that. A neighbor called the police after noticing the mail piling up outside of a neighbor's house. Never ever a good sign. I get the check the welfare call and go with a backup car. No answer at the door, so we try to look through all the first floor windows when my partner spots a foot in the hallway. We forced entry and found the elderly female barely alive. She had fallen 2 days earlier and had a broken hip. Fire rescue came and got her to the hospital in time. I know, not the weirdest thing finding her. It was then that we found her mummified husband sitting in the bedroom chair. Coroner said he had been there about 6 months. I've had to such jobs, and oh lordy have I seen some things. Mostly gross. Some kind of cool. Some that will haunt me. In no particular order, orders of various degrees. These honestly blend together in my head. One lady in a decently nice apartment was hoarding plastic bottles for the $05 deposit, causing her place to become infested with roaches. The damage and pest control cost significantly more than she was making from the recycling. A little old lady who somehow attached her TV to the apartment complex's surveillance cameras and spent all day watching her neighbors. A fully functional pigeon coo in the spare room of a top floor unit. This one I try not to think about. There was an apartment designed for people with moderate to severe physical disabilities and low income. There were some war veterans and car crash survivors, but it was mostly old folks. On the ground floor was a room with an old woman in it. She spent all day in a hammock and looked kind of like the super old lady from SpongeBob, and I say that with no humor. As far as I could tell, she was not conscious, though she could be spoon fed, so she couldn't be comatose. Hanging in the air in her small, dark room were 2 mile birthday balloons. One said 101, the other said 102. But the funniest was a framed and laminated poster for the movie 3 Men and a Baby in the master bedroom. I was 20 years old working as an internet installer, just over 10 years ago. A cute girl a little older than me ordered service, so while I was at her house surveying, both flirting, I told her I had to trace some lines down. It was a studio type mill suite she was renting behind a house as she was in college. Started tracing lines and had to look behind her bed. It was just a mountain of used tampons. She had been shoving them under and behind her bed. The rest of the house was relatively clean, also lots and lots of hoarders. There are so many hoarders. Okay. I've got one. I'm a locksmith and there was a foreclosed funeral home that I was rekeying. It was straight out of a bad horror movie in its creepiness. No power at all and barely any light. The basement was 100-year-old masonry with cadaver slabs and a cremation furnace. Creepy all in its own. However, when the real estate agent and I were sweeping the building, we went to the second floor and there was a makeshift scarecrow with a shirt with a crude face smeared on it. There was also a bed sheet covered in blood. Trash strewn about. A pile of cigarette butts. And a couple needles. Then we heard someone in the next room run across the floor. I called out, "I'm just here to change the locks," and held a hammer. There was a pause. Then the sound of a breaking window. And them climbing out. We immediately left and called the police. The police arrived and swept the building and confirmed a squatter had indeed set up there but was gone. I then went back and started changing locks. After about 30 minutes we heard the glass shuffle and 2 feet land on the floor. I called out again that we were still there. And we left again. Called the police back and they had me change the locks with an officer on site. A week later the building was set on fire. I'm an EMT. So I've seen lots of hoarders. Human and animal waste. Etc. The most aggravating day was when my partner and I got fleas from this dude's house. Our ambulance was swarming with fleas. Her and I were covered in fleas. We could see them jumping around, there were so many. We had to mark out of service to decontaminate the truck and ourselves. It was awful and itchy. When I was a caregiver, I was absolutely flabbergasted when I walked into a home where there was dog poop everywhere. No pads. No newspaper. Etc. Just dog poopy verywhere. Of all kinds. Dried. Fresh. Broken into bits. Whole pieces. There was a capable adult in the household who could have let the dog out. I had to bite my tongue every time I went there and was told to pick it up. Because I so badly wanted to go, "What in the absolute frick is wrong with you motherfuckers?" Question mark. How do you live like this when I'm not here? Question mark. I'm gonna go wholesome here. My brother was an appliance repairman. He said he never knew who was gonna answer the door. Like others have said. Naked people. Hungover people. The whole thing. His favorite would be when the toddlers would answer the door. Mama standing behind them. He said sometimes they would be a dragon or a mermaid. Or one of the Disney princesses. But the best was the ones you could tell had dressed themselves. Rain boots and bathing suits and a cape and a crown. The parents were always so thankful that he just played along with the kids. "Your Majesty. Thank you for answering the door. Is your mother here?" EMT. But this is from a colleague of mine. He and his partner show up to the scene of a frequent flyer. The caller's an old lady who was lonely and often called just to talk. Well, this time they show up. Walk in. And she's super distressed. Ask what's wrong. She says her cat, Emma, Skittles, died earlier that day. They say they are so sorry that happened. She says look, walks over to the freezer. And pulls out Emma, Skittle frozen into a block of ice. And the cat hadn't seemed sick then. Not me. But my so used to work for Comcast as an installer and electrician many years ago. He has lots of odd, funny, alarming stories. My favorite is when he was in the basement of an old house running some wires. He couldn't find the pull for the lights, so he was using a small flashlight to look around. So he's looking around and catches eyes in the dark with his flashlight. Then something starts screaming, which makes him scream. Then the homeowner comes down, turns on the lights and apologizes for not telling him about the herd of goats that live in the dark basement. Apparently they are easily startled. He said there were probably a dozen of them down there. Piles and piles of giant and opened Happy Meal toys. When asked, They said the kids won't let them throw them away. I work as a mobile computer repair service guy. And they happen to be my next door neighbors. House had an animal smell. People with pets usually do not notice. But this was different. As I sat down to work on the laptop, I heard a loud screech. And a pygmy marmoset jumped from a cabinet onto my head, pulling my hair violently. I then watched as an albino skunk, 3 house cats, and various large birds, a myna, African grey, and what I think was some kind of guinea fowl, all appeared from various rooms and furnishings. But the sheer volume of animals in that tiny space was crazy. A few weeks later, the Department of Fish and Wildlife and US Customs raided their house. I found out later my neighbor smuggled rare animals and had several aquariums full of rare poisonous snakes. I'm a pizza delivery driver, so I'm not really going into houses. But this one woman did answer the door wearing some sort of thigh-length nightgown thing and nothing else. Okay. Whatever. She was covered just fine. Except when she turned around and bent over to get her money, twice. For some reason, and her garment had holes worn out of the fabric directly over both butt cheeks. These holes were perfectly aligned, one on each cheek, with a little strip of fabric between them. But they honestly looked worn away. Not cut or anything. Had she been standing straight, they would have fallen below cheek level. They only lined up once she bent over. Twice. I get that strange women do weird poop like this to pizza guys sometimes. But I'm not a guy. I'm a woman. Probably about her age. And I've delivered to her several times before. Maybe she was expecting one of my male co-workers or something. I do it work on my own. I go into a lot of private homes. Orders are rare. But it happens. Sad are some older people who are just lonely. Their PC issues are minor. But I'm someone to chat with for a while. One of my regulars is a couple in their late 80s. The old guy always wants me to play checkers with him. If I have the time, I play a few games. He always wins and brags like he won the Super Bowl. One day his wife called in a panic. She said Joe fell in the bathroom and can't get up. I suggest 911. But she says he's okay. Just can't get up. So I go over. About 10 minutes. Joe is on the bathroom floor in his underwear, flat on his back. I got him into his wheelchair. His first words were, "Got time for a few games of checkers?" Plenty of dead stuff. I'm a housing officer, and whenever someone's worried about one of our tenants, I end up going out to check it out. We aren't allowed to enter someone's house without permission, so end up doing the letterbox sniff, trademark, to work out what's up. Once you've smelled dead a couple of times, you know what's up and just call the police to gain entry. Found plenty of dead people. Couple of unforgettable ones. One had a heart attack. Fell. Cracked his head on the radiator. Died in a huge pool of blood with his head cracked wide open. Sat propped against the wall staring at the door. The worst was the dude who'd been dead a while and half liquidized into the flooring. Our cleaning guys took up the carpet after the services had sponged the guy's remains off, and there was the shape of man stained into the concrete underneath. Great time explaining why there was the shadow of man stained into the concrete to the next tenants. Other than dead people. Loads of drugs. Properties being used as drugs factories. General filth. Neglect and extreme poverty on the almost daily. Whole living room was set up like a strip club with a stage and stripper pole. Used to babysit for a family. Great family. Good kids. But I swear they had no organization to their home. Piles of clothes wherever they could fit. Toys scattered everywhere. When I tried to clean one time, I was told by them all to not worry. And the house appeared to be perpetually in the middle of construction. I could forgive all of that. All of that. If they just put the food in their kitchen away. I just want to say that I've been working as a pizza guy for almost 3 years, and I'm terrified of these stories, while also wanting something like these to happen to me just so I can be able to tell the story. The best I can do is that one time the guy didn't have enough cash, so he had to call in his card number to the restaurant. But he was in the middle of a game of Rocket League. So he asked me if I played that game, and I did, so I subbed in for him and got the game winning save and goal as he was calling the restaurant, giving me a generous tip for my efforts. When I was walking out, the guy put his headset back on and said, "Yo, that was the pizza guy," to his friends. Felt good.
Hi there. Look, if you enjoyed the video, well, why not go ahead and hit that like and subscribe to Reddit Stories. In fact, if you want to see even more responses to this thread, well then, take a look. There's the link in the description below. And remember, show some love to those authors while you're there. And I look forward to seeing you next time.